channel, welcome to another video. Today we're going to be talking about the breaking news that took place last night following Aston Villa's 3-0 defeat to Fulham, in which Steven Gerrard was given the sack by Aston Villa. We're going to be talking all about Gerrard's reign as Villa manager, how it turned, how it ended up being so toxic towards the end, and where do both Villa and Gerrard turn from here. But before we get into all of that, I would like to remind you all to please like the video and also subscribe if you're new. Both things are always and forever be greatly appreciated. Now, let's get into this story. Let's talk about the big breaking news that took place last night, because, you know, I guess you'd say that the writing had been on the wall for a while. There were reports earlier on in the week that suggested that Gerrard was already going to be sacked as manager, or already had been sacked as manager, depending on where you were looking for your kind of Aston Villa, Steven Gerrard kind of news. And obviously those reports turned out to be kind of fake, I guess you'd say, because Gerrard did go on to remain as Aston Villa manager for that game last night that took place between Villa and Fulham. But it seems that Fulham had drove the final nail in the Steven Gerrard managerial coffin, as it were, at Aston Villa with a heavy and humiliating 3-0 defeat there for Villa, suffered by Villa, and obviously dealt to them by Fulham, of course. As a Liverpool fan, it does hurt me a little bit, because obviously Steven Gerrard is someone that I idolised and loved growing up. He was my hero, giving me so many great moments, celebrating and loving Liverpool throughout my childhood years, I guess you'd say. And obviously I always wanted him to do successful, and when I saw him do successful at Rangers, I thought that he would go on to have a great managerial career. And yes, that could still happen, of course it could. This could just be a bit of a setback, but obviously it's not gone according to plan at Aston Villa. And of course, obviously still being a Liverpool fan and him being a Liverpool legend, a Liverpool icon, a Liverpool hero, the overall consensus is that one day he will manage Liverpool. And, you know, that could still happen. Like I say, this could just be a bit of a setback for him, and somewhere down the line he could resurrect his managerial career and everything. And I think that obviously he's still got a bit of credit left in the bank from obviously winning the Scottish League title with Rangers a few years ago. But that's where this whole managerial thing with Aston Villa stemmed from. When he was first announced, he hasn't even been in charge of Aston Villa for a whole year. It was under a year before he was given the sack. But when obviously he was announced as the Aston Villa manager, there was a lot of intrigue and a lot of excitement, I guess you'd say, surrounding Gerrard and obviously this managerial appointment. He'd obviously made a name for himself. He obviously began coaching at Liverpool for a time. Then he went on to make his managerial debut, I guess you'd say, at Rangers in the Scottish League. It took him a couple of years to get things sorted out there before eventually he did go on to win the Scottish League title with Rangers, and he did it in very convincing style as well. I think Rangers were Centurions, they were invincibles that season. It was seen as a great achievement by Gerrard, despite the fact that obviously it is the Scottish League, so it is essentially a bit of a two-horse race. But Celtic hadn't been knocked off their perch for a good 10 years or so. So it was still a very good achievement by Gerrard to have achieved and to have under his belt as a manager and everything. So it was seen as a great achievement to get that far. And then of course talk began of using Rangers as a stepping stone towards bigger and better things. And obviously a return to the Premier League, this time as a manager in that capacity, was going to be talked about. I think there were a couple of clubs that were seemingly interested or seemingly rumoured to be linked with his name of him taking charge. But then Aston Villa came along, and it seemed like too big of an opportunity to really pass up. And he took obviously his coaching staff that had been with him at Rangers and left for Aston Villa. The excitement, the intrigue was there. Everyone was interested to see how he would take to the obviously step up in terms of the team, in terms of the league and everything. And you know, I guess there were some good moments when it started off okay. It started off a bit promising, a bit of potential there and everything, and it seemed like it was it had, like I say, a lot of promise to it. But then there were some dark moments, there were some bad moments, there was some poor results that came, some poor performances, and eventually the poor performances outlasted the good ones. And like I say, again, you can look back at some of the good moments, some of the good highlights, and you can say that there was promise to that. There were some good moments that could have been built upon. There was a good platform at times for them to build upon, but it just didn't. It didn't last. It didn't happen for a period of longevity in his managerial career at Villa. Why that is, I'm not 100% sure. People will point to Michael Beale leaving as mainly the brains behind the Steven Gerrard operation, and you know, I think from what I've heard and from what I've researched on Gerrard and Michael Beale, like Beale was a big part of Gerrard at his time at Rangers, and he was going to be a big part of his time at Aston Villa. But then obviously when management came calling, he decided that it was again too big an opportunity to pass up, and so he decided to leave and take his own role and take his own management. And I guess you could say that might have hurt Gerrard at this point, and whether that's the case or not remains to be seen. Obviously, it could be a big factor and seems to be a big factor right now. But like I say, this could just be a setback for Gerrard. This could just be a setback, and he needs to obviously reset himself, and maybe he will go and get another job down in the Championship, maybe, and restart and rebuild from there. Maybe making the jump from the Scottish League to the Premier League might be seen now in hindsight as a bit of a bigger jump than he realised. We'll have to wait and see, because it will be interesting to see. Like I said, I think there is still enough credit in the Steven Gerrard bank from his time at Rangers for him to still be regarded as a young up-and-coming manager with a bit of potential behind him, and obviously a bit of a resume already. But it will be interesting to see where he goes from here. Like I said, I think it's a bit unfortunate, a young manager like him to have flopped the way that this kind of has, in a way. Obviously, big money's been spent. I think injuries and big injuries and that didn't really help. But there was just always a loose connection, I felt, because I felt Aston Villa had a very good team, especially attacking wise. When you look at the attacking talent on display at Villa, Ollie Watkins, Danny Ings, Phil Coutinho, Emi Buendia, John McGinn, those kinds of players all combining, it looks a very decent side that could be challenging for Europe. And then you obviously go defensively, you've got Emi Martinez in goal, you've got Matty Cash at right back, a solid right back, you've got Lucas Digne injured right now, but at the same time still pretty decent. I know everyone kind of mocks Tyrone Mings, but I'd still say that he's a decent enough defender for a team like Aston Villa. There just seems to be a bit of a loose connection there. Douglas Luiz in centre defence in midfield, and there just seems to be a bit of a loose connection there, because that team should be strong to build upon. It should be strong enough, I think, to challenge higher up than what they were, and I think they were genuinely underperforming. And it's just difficult to understand necessarily why that was. It's a very strange situation that you find yourself in Aston Villa right now. And like I say, unfortunate for Gerrard, it just didn't work out. He will go and hit the reset button. He might take a job in the Championship, hit the reset from there. What about Aston Villa though? Well, the overall talk for Villa and for the past few days for Villa has obviously been Mauricio Pochettino making an incredible return to the Premier League, and you know, it makes sense. Pochettino is a guy that builds teams and has obviously a very good record in the Premier League, not winning anything, but he was quite successful at his time at Tottenham for different reasons other than silverware, helping build a team, build exciting football and give them a sense of achievement and accomplishment in terms of raising their level, raising their game. Obviously he turned Tottenham into a serious top 4 side, as well as giving them a few decent cup runs here and there. Pochettino, I think, would be a solid choice, and I think would be a great choice to go after, because of all of those reasons and obviously much more that Pochettino can offer. But it would just be interesting to see if, I mean, Pochettino has seemingly already declared that he is genuinely interested in going there, but it will be interesting to see if that actually comes off or not, and obviously how he manages to reshape this team. I think maybe when you look at it, there may be a few square pegs and round holes kind of situation. Maybe there's more players in. Like for example, trying to fit Danny Ings and Ollie Watkins into the same squad when really they're both more strikers, aren't they? Trying to play Watkins as a winger or something. Trying to play Buendia and Coutinho together may not be the best fit either. You know, in situations like that may have cost Gerrard a little bit. It will be interesting to see what the next manager does. That can obviously change that. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next few days or weeks at Aston Villa in terms of searching for a new manager and how they try and get their season back on track. It's a shame for Gerrard. Like I say, it was a appointment just under a year ago that was met with intrigue, interest, excitement. Just hasn't panned out. It's horrible the way that it turned toxic in the end, with his own fans turning against him, singing songs, the chants, everything along those lines, turning completely against their manager and everything. But like I say, the writing has seemingly been on the wall. It's seemingly been in hot water for a while, and finally it caught up with him, and he has been given the sack. And like I say, it's unfortunate. He's going to go hit the reset button, I think. Villa are going to go after a new manager, and I think it will be Pochettino, because I think that's too big of an opportunity for a team like Villa in their current situation and with everything going on with them right now to really pass up. And it was going to be very intriguing to find out what happens to Aston Villa going forward. But as I always say, these are just the thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you want to call it, of this guy. I want to know what you guys think. What do you make of the sacking of Steven Gerrard last night following Aston Villa's 3-0 defeat to Fulham? What are your own thoughts, your comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you want to call it, on the Aston Villa and Steven Gerrard situation? Was it the right move? Was it the wrong move? Because again, we've seen Steve Cooper of Forest be given a new contract recently, when it could have been just as easy to have sacked him. Would it have been better for Villa to have tried to ride it out a little bit more and see if Steven Gerrard could have turned it around, or was it the right call to give him the chop? I'd like to know what you guys think down below in the comment section. Sure, it'll make for interesting reading. Otherwise, hit the like button on the way up. Enjoy the video, subscribe if you're new and want to see more content like this. Both things are always and forever greatly appreciated. And as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening. I've been Fletch. This has been another Fletch Talks video. I'll see you all again soon in another video.